Welcome. Thanks for joining me again today for another Āsana a day. Today we're going to work on supported inversions. There are actually 4 poses, 4 supported inversions that I'd like to share with you. However, in this video today, we're just going to look at 3 poses. The 4th pose, which is a supported shoulder stand, I'm going to save for another video. Ideally, unless you already practice shoulder stand or supported shoulder stand, you really should go through these first 3 poses first before you move into the supported shoulder stand. And on that note, I should say that if you have any issues like uncontrolled high blood pressure, maybe excessively low blood pressure or glaucoma, it would be wise to check with your doctor before you start practicing inversions of any kind. The 3 I'm choosing today are very safe and pretty doable by just about everybody. If you can get down on the floor, you can do these, especially the first one. But it is always a good idea to check with your doctor to find out if this is okay with you, if you have any kind of health issue that might make you concerned. So, what I'm going to do right now is talk you through, I want to talk about a couple of the benefits and reasons why we might want to practice these supported inversions, and then we're going to get into actually doing them. So if you are watching this a second time, you could just kind of forward through the video through the first talking part to do the practice part. So there are a lot of benefits to inversions. So to start with, the nervous system. They are really great poses for calming and quieting our nervous systems. So you've probably, if you've watched some of my other videos, heard me talk about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which are these 2 aspects of our nervous system that need to be balanced for us to be in a really optimal, healthy state of well-being. The sympathetic nervous system is that part that's about going and doing and checking things off our list. It's called the fight or flight. If we are in a lot of stress, that aspect of our nervous system is elevated all the time. It's an important and necessary part of our nervous system, but we don't want to live there all the time. It depletes our body and our other systems. So the parasympathetic nervous system is what gets stimulated when we do some of these supported poses. And in general, when we do yoga, even if it's an active practice, yoga in general tends to be, I guess it depends on how you practice it, but a calming, quieting, centering practice. But these supported poses, and particularly these inversions, really shift us into that parasympathetic nervous system dominance. So that's a big number 1 benefit. These practices also shift our brain waves. They're very calming for the mind, and they shift us into a state of mental relaxation. So when we're in our normal everyday life doing things, we're usually in beta brain waves. It's a very active mind. And then when we're in a state of rest, we move into alpha brain waves. And in a very deep state of rest where like a settled mind, where you might think of yourself of being in the flow, you're not really thinking about things, but ideas and creativity really emerges in that state. So these poses can really shift us into the alpha and theta states. Another system that really benefits seems like a real easy given conclusion is the circulatory system. So we're elevating the legs, we're elevating the hips over the heart and the head, and so we're using gravity to draw the fluids of the body back towards the heart. So it's very calming and gentle for the heart and supportive, because the lower extremity, the fluids from the lower extremity are being drawn by gravity back toward the heart. And that also leads us into the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system works with these lymphatic vessels that start in the periphery of the body and move back toward centers in the torso and toward the heart as they cleanse all the fluids of the body. So it's taking the fluids from the tissues, are being drawn into these lymphatic vessels and back through cleansing centers in the body, and then the heart sends it back out with the blood circulation. So that's a really important aspect of our immune function. And then in addition to all of these benefits from working with gravity in this way, our endocrine system really benefits. So a lot of our endocrine glands are in the head and upper chest. So when we are inverting, we are basically sending a lot of fluid and blood circulation to the head and upper chest, and therefore I like to use the word marinating. We're marinating our endocrine glands in this blood circulation. When we move out of the pose, then it's somewhat like flushing. So I know in class before used the term like it's like you're an oil change basically for your body. Like you're going upside down, you're marinating the endocrine tissue, the glands in the blood flow, and then when you come out, it's like flushing. So you're changing it, and then new blood circulation moves in, so you're just getting this fresh flow of the nutrients that your body needs and disseminating and moving those hormones, those chemicals throughout the body that need to be moving around more effectively. So based on these few systems that I've mentioned, you can see that inversion practice is really important for the immune function. Immune function depends on your nervous system, your circulatory system, your lymphatic system, your endocrine system to operate optimally. And so all of those systems benefiting from these inversions improves your immune function. And these are great practices for all people, really of all ages, but I want to emphasize how it really helps women for women's health, for our natural menstrual cycles throughout our life. So, for example, teens who are just coming into their menstrual cycle, it can really help to balance and get that flowing smoothly. So by this daily regular practice of marinating and flushing and moving the hormones, the endocrine, the chemicals throughout our body can really just help a teen as she moves into that whole cycle of her life. For women who are menstruating, you never want to, I shouldn't say never, but we really don't want to practice inversions during menstruation. Menstruation is this energy of moving out. And so it's important to honor that and allow that to happen. But during the other times of the cycle, it's great to invert because of all the benefits that I talked about previously in terms of the endocrine system and just even managing stress. The relaxation aspect of these poses help us to keep stress in perspective. So that's really helpful because that affects our menstrual cycle. So people who have really intense symptoms and premenstrual syndrome can practice these inversions and kind of see how that affects you throughout the whole cycle. You know, you want to give it a few months to kind of really look at practicing daily how that might help and improve, if at all, the symptoms you're experiencing. And then for perimenopause, a lot of women experience these supported inversions, especially because these are kind of really opening up the front body too, in terms of being similar to a back bend. These poses help to moderate and even ameliorate or eliminate things like headaches and hot flashes and some of the other symptoms that go along with perimenopause, which stress and emotional intensity can be a big part of that. And so these poses really calming the mind and flushing the endocrine system and improving the circulation and shifting the nervous system into that parasympathetic state all just really benefit a woman who's experiencing that perimenopause period. And then postmenopause, these are still great for all the reasons that I've mentioned above, talking about the different systems of the body. So I won't go into great detail, but I think you can see how it's really beneficial to us throughout our whole life. So the key to this, and you've heard me say this throughout this video, the key to this is daily practice. So doing yoga is more like taking herbs than taking a drug to cure some symptoms. You know, if you take herbs, that you have to take them daily. It's a very gentle process that works very slowly on all the systems of the body and has its effect. Whereas, you know, you have a headache and you take a painkiller. That works pretty quickly. Yoga is not like that. You can't do a pose one day and then try it again next month and think that you're going to have an effect on, say, hot flashes or your stress, right? It's a daily practice that builds up slowly in our body and consistently so for us to feel these benefits. So you do have to do the poses. All right, so hopefully you're enjoying them so much that you just can't wait to do the poses, and then you kind of organize your life so that you create time to fit these poses in. So let's get right into the practice. So the 3 inversions I'm going to look at today are lying on our backs with our legs up the wall. Pretty simple, and like I said, most people can do this. Then we're going to look at a pose called Viparita Karani. This pose is lying on the back with your legs up the wall, but your hips are also elevated. So it's a bit more of an inversion. And because that pose often gives people trouble with if you have tight hamstrings, and then people just tend to not practice it, I'm going to offer an alternative with the chair so that everybody hopefully can find a way to practice this that feels really good. Okay, so some things you might need. Well, a chair. I put a blanket on my chair so it's warm and soft. A block, a blanket for head support, you know, to put under your head and neck. You could have an eye bag or a hand towel to go over your eyes. And a bolster. So I'm going to use the bolster and the block interchangeably. And then maybe even another blanket to support the hands. So if you've done some of my other videos, like the Shavasana one, I think I showed how we support the hand so it's a little higher than the elbow. And this shape of the arm has a very relaxing effect on our nervous system, as opposed to this, right? Just doing this is a bit kind of open and stimulating, and this is kind of closing in. It feels a little bit more like a hug. It's soft, and there's just this effect on our nervous system of and that's what we're looking for. So join me, gather up your things, pause your video if you need to go gather your things, and then if you have already watched this video once and you've done all of the, you know, what are the benefits, you could just start here and practice together with me. Even though this is a bit like a tutorial, I'm teaching you how to do it because I really want you to be able to do this on your own whenever you need to. For example, I often go and lay in my living room and just put my legs up on the couch, right? So that would be like this legs up the wall, but even there, my knees are bent. Or I throw the bolster down on the floor and put something on the couch, like some extra pillows, hips on the bolster, legs up on the couch. So it's really can be very informal, like, I need an inversion. You go lay down in the living room, you set something up. Once you're familiar with it, you can do that. Or it can be more of like an official part of your yoga practice or your yoga practice for the day, where you you go in a quiet space, you know, maybe you have your own little room where you practice yoga and you set things up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at this laying down with the legs up the wall. So for this, have nearby a folded blanket that you'll put under your head and a block and or a bolster, so you can try these variations when we elevate the pelvis. So I'm going to situate myself so that my hips are close to the wall. Now I have this odd wall where it's going like this, and you may be against a flat wall, so you'll have to, your feet will be a little further out. And then I'm going to lay down on my side and roll onto the back and adjust myself so that I'm pretty close to the wall, and I can extend my legs up the wall. Don't put the blanket under your head just yet. I want you to just feel out what this feels like to lay down and put your legs up the wall. In a pinch, this is just a great pose. Just do this. You can do this. You can find a place to do this, just about anywhere. And just feel that wonderful support of it, blood flow moving back towards the hips, towards the heart, towards the head, the legs being elevated and relieving any swelling in the feet and the legs. This is a great thing to do actually after traveling. You can imagine sitting in a car or a plane for a long period of time. So then what I want you to notice is what's going on with your head and neck. For many people laying down here, the head will be like this, right? So if we tend to have more of a curve in our thoracic spine and a forward head position, this is where you're going to be. This is not going to be very relaxing. So that's when we lift the head and bring a pillow or a blanket or something underneath the head so that you can have the chin lower than the forehead or level. Much more quieting. Just take a moment to notice how that feels. Now, for some people, when you get here, you may notice, and I realize that I've tried to create some lighting so you can see me, and I've got these dark clothes on in this kind of dark corner. So I apologize for that. But when you lay down, you may find that when you get to the wall and you take your legs up, if you have a lot of tightness in your hamstrings, the back of the thighs, a couple of things are going to happen. Your pelvis is going to tip back and your knees are going to bend. So you may be laying here like this, asking yourself, why does she think this is comfortable? Because this will not feel very comfortable, especially if you don't have the blanket and your head is like this, right? So we're gonna kind of smooth out all those little kinks that are happening, okay? This one gets smoothed out with the blanket, and you can scoot away from the wall, right? Just scoot away from the wall and have your legs, more at an angle. And you'll notice then that your pelvis is not tipped like this, but it's more neutral, right? And you're kind of coming back more to your natural lumbar curve instead of flattening it against the floor. So those are some things you might notice happening. Now, some people, if you're like me, I hyperextend. My knee joints are very loose and they hyperextend. So staying here for a period of time would not feel very good for me and for some people. Even if your hamstrings are tight, you might be able to hyperextend your knees. So you could find something. If you don't have a bolster, go check out the video I made about making a bolster with things you have at home, or find something that you can put, some kind of cushion that you can put behind your legs so that the knees are supported. And you could put a yoga belt around your legs or around the bolster in your legs, or take your bathrobe belt and tie it around the legs just so that you can let go of the muscular effort. All right, so this is one pose, and the arms can be down by your sides or out to the side. I have a wall here, but you get the picture. And then you can put like a towel or an eye bag over your eyes and just rest for a few moments. So, but for today, I'm going to move on to the next pose, because what we're going to really practice with is Viparita Karani, either here at the wall or with the chair. So, to do that, we're going to, you could just go from this pose with your legs up like this. And I'll demonstrate it away from the wall. So, what we have then is we're laying here on the floor with our legs up the wall. If we're going into Viparita Karani, we need to take the blanket out from under the head. You do not want that when you elevate your hips, all right? If the floor feels hard, you could put a very thin amount of padding under your head, but we don't want to be going upside down, flowing upside down, and then the head is going up, right? We don't want that. That's not going to be so good for the neck. So I'm going to bend my knees, push into the wall, and lift my hips up. Make sure your shirt doesn't get caught there. And I'm putting the block right at the top of my sacrum. So it's not into my lower back. That would not be comfortable. But the top of the sacrum, right? And what I want is when I place it, that my pelvis is kind of flat, like it was on the floor, right? I don't want to, if I put it too far away, I may end up tipping my pelvis back this way, which now the energy is kind of getting caught right here. I'm really shortened in my front body, and actually you will feel a lot of blood rushing to your head and pressure on your head and possibly neck. So this comes back a little bit towards the chest, so your pelvis can be flat, and I said chest, but I mean like the lower back. It's coming more this way than that way, because we want these lower ribs to be open, these bottom lower ribs to really be open. The front body is open. The weight drops into the block and then flows over the block to the floor, and you bring your chin down, right? So for people who have really tight hamstrings, this can feel not super comfortable. So I am going to show you a variation on the chair. But I do want to show you what this looks like if we're closer to the wall first. If you're there and you're happy, you might like to just keep hanging out there. But I'm going to scoot myself closer to the wall so that I am really almost like at this 90 degree. Lift up, put the block under, and then you might find that your arms can go overhead or out to the sides, right? That's nice that this blanket is here because my hands are elevated over a little higher than my elbows. And there's this energy of dropping down through the legs and then over the front body, over the pelvis, into the heart area, and then the chin low, the head is very quiet. I'll just demonstrate that with the bolster so you can see that with the bolster. Although I know my pants and my bolster are similar color. So the bolster obviously much softer. You could even add blankets on top of this if you really like it works for you to be higher. But look at that line of the energy moving straight down the legs, dropping in the hips, and then moving over over the bolster. The lower back is fully supported by the bolster here, whereas on the block, my hips were just elevated on the block, and it was a little more, it wasn't as supported. This is very comfortable. And that gives me the idea that you could take a block and wrap it in some bath towels or blankets, and that might be nice. It might feel good. So this is Viparita Karani using the wall. There is an active version of this pose.
but we want to use the wall to just let the weight of our legs drop into the wall. Let the weight of the lower back drop into the bolster. The floor is holding the upper back and the head and the arms. And then you could, if you're happy, you could, if you wear glasses, take them off, cover your eyes. But I am going to come up and demonstrate how we do this pose with the chair. It's the same shape, but your legs don't have to be vertical. So, if you're in that category, and actually, I love that pose, but I also love this pose. So sometimes I just do this. So that's where I take my chair, and I'm going to place the bolster a little bit away from the chair, right? Because we want that thing where the legs join the pelvis to be on this side of the bolster, and then the hips and the lower back on the bolster and the upper back on the floor. And you could have something to cover up your eyes with. You could have that handy. And the way I'm going to show this is from the back so that you can see how I get into this. So, and I'm putting this up here because I really liked having my hands find that blanket. All right, so I'm going to put my hips way on this side of the bolster, right, to start off with. So just see what that looks like, right, where I'm at. And I'm doing this slow motion so you can see. Then I'm rolling onto my back. And I just elevate the hips and just make sure that they're comfortable and fully over the bolster, that my upper back is resting on the floor. You can see the front body is really open. If you find your lower ribs, this is really open, right? The solar plexus is open. It is not, if your bolster is too far towards the chair, this solar plexus area will be collapsed. And you'll also probably be feeling like weight in your head or in your face. And this actually is really quite light in the head. The shoulders, they are touching, they are resting on the floor, but there's a sense of lightness, right? As the weight is really distributed between the bolster and the floor. And then you can see I brought my legs on the chair. The chair needs to come up to the back of your knees, right? So if it's too far away and your knees are kind of dangling in space, that won't feel good. So bring that chair all the way up. And then if you have something that you like to put over your eyes, like an eye bag or just a towel, you can have that. And then if it works for your arms to be overhead, having something there that your hands can be elevated on is useful. Otherwise, you can take the arms out to the sides, and I'm going to put my hands on little blankets, little hand towels there, just to be a little bit elevated. You know, even a yoga block can go under your hand and be elevated like that. I think I put mine too far away, but that could, you try that out. That can be really nice. Or they can even be, arms can be down by your sides. And I would, again, take my little supports, right? Notice how I put my hands now. I didn't have my palms up. I kind of have them on the sides. That can have a nice calming, centering effect. So, just to be a good role model, I will show you. I'm taking my glasses off, committing to the pose. I'm placing something over my eyes. And it would be ideal if you have a blanket to put that over the chair, over your body, and to really be warm and cozy, right? So you can even start this, like have the blanket over the chair and you kind of slip in underneath it. So I'm going to, from this position, talk you into the pose a little bit, and then I'm going to come up, give you a little timing, and sound a bell so that you get some time here to really rest deeply or marinate
We will marinate together in this pose. So just take a moment and feel the support. And feel the chair under your legs, holding your legs. If you chose to do the pose at the wall, feel how the wall holds your legs. Feel the bolster holding the weight of your pelvis and your lower back. If you chose the block underneath your hips at the wall, feel that support. Let the support take the weight of your body so you can surrender all muscular effort. Now feel how the floor is holding your upper back, your shoulders, your arms, your head. Surrender the weight of the body to the floor. Soften your jaw. Release the lower teeth away from the upper teeth slightly. You could even swallow. You could yawn and stick your tongue out and then let it settle. And as we find a little space in the jaw, we find that our lips might soften a bit, the corners of the mouth gliding away from the midline of the face. And the tongue relaxes back away from the teeth and away from the roof of the mouth. If you have an eye bag on, it will have already done the job, but if you're using a towel or nothing, using a towel like I'm doing, or you have nothing, you might want to just give some attention to letting your eyes surrender back into the eye sockets so that the skin of the eyelids softens and widens. You can even notice if your eyes have a direction that they're gazing in. Draw that gaze, that inward gaze, toward the heart center. See the space between your eyebrows widening. Feel it widening. The forehead widens. With each breath, just feeling the weight of the body sinking deeper and deeper into the support beneath it. Let yourself rest deeply. Take your time to transition. We want to maintain that parasympathetic dominance as we come out of the pose. So moving slowly and in stages. If your legs are up the wall, you can bend your knees. And you might even rock side to side a little bit as you roll eventually onto your side. If your legs are on the chair, you draw the knees towards your chest, and again, you could rock side to side a little bit. And then choose one side and roll onto your side and kind of shift your hips off of your bolster. And just rest on your side for a few moments. I like to take my time on my side to just kind of feel the shift of the body and its relationship to gravity, from being a little bit inverted on my back and now on the side. And also take that time to open up the eyes very gently, especially if you had an eye bag on, it would be quite dark, so just kind of keeping the eyes closed, taking the light in through the eyelids, and then slowly opening the eyes. And then you can use your hands to bring yourself up, letting your head hang as you come up from the strength of the deep lower belly, drawing into the back body, and the hands pushing the floor away. So I hope that you will practice these supported inversions more regularly. Incorporate them into your day in some way. Could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I think 20 minutes is probably maximum that you'd want to stay legs up the wall or feet on the chair. If you do the one with the legs up the wall and your feet start to get cold or they start losing circulation, you can stay there but bring your feet together and your knees apart. But even just 5 minutes a day can have an effect, right? So try the 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and see how this begins to affect your life. I would say you would want to do this for at least 2 months to kind of, especially for women who are looking at their cycle, to see how this might be helping and changing things. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy your own personal practice. Namaste.